Karen, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
If John was beaten up and attacked in that house, who did it?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. And it's not for us to know. Somebody other than Karen is responsible for that, for the killing of John.
Yeah. Roberta in the truth zone, mic hitting raw. Spotlight shining, she exposing the flaw. Debunking the myth, breaking their facade. This is Glass City, respect the squad. On these NYC blocks where the skyline flex big. Roberta Glass slicing lies with a truth rig. Innocence fraudsters, your stories unravel. She's a map through the madness of gritty gravel. Glass don't bend and facts don't break. She's a storm that's called, you feel the quake. Exposing tales stitched with crooked seams. Justice in the lens, shattered fake dreams. Dreams about killers, painted heroes in disguise. She burning propaganda with fire in her eyes. No glamour for the guilty, she call it straight. She backs victims, the voice stay away. Stats and receipts, no spin, no clutter. Cold cases whisper, she cuts through the mutter. Truth's her tempo, don't confuse the beat. She's standing for the real while you taking a seat. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time to play. She's glass hard, break the false and save the day. True crime's a block, facts the artillery. Spinning those lies, yo, she checks that misery. Tabloid tales get smashed, no time.
All right. How is everybody? Hello, Eva. Hello, Robert. Hello, Angela. Hello, Wesley loves Oktoberfest. Nice to see everybody. Hello, Barb. Hello, Lou. Did I miss anybody? I hope not. She-Fly? Rockstar? Okay. Hello, everybody. Wanted to talk today on this Friday. It's not my usual day, but it's a good day to talk about Karen Read. She is given another interview to innocence fraudster writer Julie Miller, her propagandist at the Vanity Fair. You can hear Dominic Dunn rolling in his grave at the pro-killer tales that they're churning out at Vanity Fair. And lo and behold, if Karen Read, who I've been saying all along has given herself an education in innocence fraud, was probably a true crime fan before this, is now saying that she would have applauded OJ's acquittal, even though she thought she thinks he's guilty, meaning I would have applauded the acquittal of a brutal, one of the most brutal double murders in California history, because apparently the investigation is not up to her snuff. Let's take a listen to it. Last week, Karen Read returned to a wood-paneled courtroom about 25 minutes southwest of Boston for her second murder trial. 12 jurors had already determined. Here it is again. Hold on, hold on a second. Let me just send these pictures of the verdict sheets. Someone was asking to take a look at the verdict sheets, what they look like. And you will not believe it. You have to believe it seeing is believing. It's not the darkest version of them, but here they are. Hold on, let me just send them to myself and show them to me. Thank you for your patience. But so what's so amazing about these verdict forms is not only did Karen Reed's legal team object to them and insist that they had to have a not guilty. They're very light, so if you can't read them, I will show them to you another day a little bit. I'll try to darken them up and show them to you again, but I will read them to you. One minuto. Thanks for your patience. So each form, each charge has its own. Yeah, they're awfully light, but I can read them. Hold on one second. I wonder if they would look better on black. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, they're really, really hard to read, right? But to give you an idea, so the first says verdict slip. So at the top it says murder in the second degree. In the above title case, we, the jury, say the defendant is not guilty of offense as charged, murder in the second degree. They couldn't decide when they all agreed that they were not guilty. She was not guilty of this charge. So here you can kind of see at the top, not guilty, guilty. They couldn't figure this out. Manslaughter while operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor, not guilty of the offense charged or any lesser offense, guilty of offense as charged, and then guilty of a lesser included offense, including manslaughter. That's the third option they're given. The fourth option is guilty of a lesser included offense. And they can pick motor vehicle homicide by operating a motor vehicle under the influence of liquor, and or motor vehicle homicide by operating a motor vehicle while with a blood alcohol level of greater than 0.8. So we're supposed to believe, and very similar on the third verdict slip they were given. So they're given a separate verdict slip for each offense. Leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death, not guilty or guilty. So they could pick one. So Julie Miller and Karen Reed and all the people that have been promoting this lie would like us to believe that these jurors could not figure out how to fill out those very simple verdict slips. If that's true, then they shouldn't have been on the jury. 12 jurors, but Julie Miller's telling you from Vanity Fair that this is the absolute truth. Right. Lazy Susan says the lawyer jury couldn't figure this. Sure. She wasn't on the lawyer who's helping Karen Reed with jury selection. Victoria George was not on the deliberating jury. But they were confused by these verdicts. This is just a Karen Reed propagandist lie. But Julie Miller from Vanity Fair is putting it out like it's the truth. 12 jurors had already determined that there was not enough evidence from Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey. It wasn't that to convict Reed of a second-degree murder and a lesser charge of leaving the scene of a deadly accident. According to 2 jurors who spoke to Vanity Fair, after a mistrial was declared, 5 jurors came forward to say that the voting body had only been split on the manslaughter charge, but had not understood that coming to a partial verdict was an option. Really? With 3 separate verdict slips, they couldn't figure that out? This is insane. They couldn't figure out how to work the jury slips. And now, against a backdrop of escalating appeals arguing that a second murder trial would violate Reed's double jeopardy rights, the former equity analyst was back in the defendant's seat. So basically, Julie Miller's starting this article saying that it's totally unjust and against the American way to have Karen Reed be retried for anything. Lazy Susan says, this makes me nervous. She's obviously feeling confident. I fear they've achieved their goal, free Karen Reed on the jury. This seems bad. Just the article? I mean, if they had free Karen Reed on the jury, they wouldn't need the article. Maybe you can explain a little bit more, Susan. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, they must have gotten in touch with Julie Miller way before. They've always played this out in the court of public opinion because facts aren't with them. They can't play this out in the court. I mean, does anybody remember their skeleton defense? I mean, they just had a few experts, I say loosely, a few people testify, a few attention-seeking, disreputable people, mostly with arrest histories themselves, or some other kind of creepy thing in their past. The best thing they had was ARCA, and now they have been revealed to be perjurers, totally dishonest, hired guns for the defense. The initial trial had riveted Massachusetts. Reed was accused of drunkenly killing her police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, by hitting him with her car and leaving him to die on the lawn of a home belonging to another Boston cop, Brian Albert. But she says nothing about the nor'easter. He just died. It wasn't that he died in the worst storm, one of the worst storms that Massachusetts has ever seen. Do you see it's all about what you present to an audience. So people make their decisions on the information that you give them. If you leave out information, like it was a terrible nor'easter, blizzard condition, she left him in blizzard conditions to die, it doesn't sound so bad, right? She just hit him with her car, maybe by accident. Maybe she was drunk and she didn't know what she was doing. That's what Julie Miller would like you to conclude after reading this. As Reed previously told Vanity Fair, she believes that she is being framed, LOL, in a corrupt saga involving 4 law enforcement agencies, including the Massachusetts State Police, whose troopers work out of Morrissey's office and investigated O'Keefe's death. The trial ended with a hung jury and worldwide attention. In her second trial on the same charges, Reed again faces life in prison. Reed has expanded her legal team of David Yannetti, Alan Jackson, and Elizabeth Little, adding Robert Alessi of New York, Victoria George of Massachusetts, a juror from the first trial, and 9 law students who will act as clerks, including Sophia Hunt, who recently served as Harvard Law Review president, and Abigail Rosvetsky. And this is true about the wrongful conviction movement. They have entire divisions in colleges, and graduate schools like the Medill Journalism School at Northwestern, and they work tirelessly and for free. And they have young people's energy to do it. So they have so many resources, and they always present themselves as the underdog, when really they're the big dog, and the underdog is really the state. A former Fulbright scholar, Reed has already sunk 7 figures. So Abigail Rozovsky is a former Fulbright scholar and now budding innocence fraudster. Reed has already sunk 7 figures into her defense, liquidating her retirement funds, selling her house, oh, poor Karen Reed, and relying on donations. which nobody knows where they're going. All 11 of her editions are working pro bono. Morrissey, meanwhile, has enlisted Hank Brennan, one of Whitey Bulger's defense lawyers, to act as special prosecutor for the government. Brennan has taken a more proactive approach than his predecessor in the first trial. I wouldn't say that's true. I would just say that Adam Lally was up against it and tried a lot of the same things Brennan did. Last month, Brennan tried to obtain text messages. I would just say that Adam Lally wasn't involving Karen Reed's innocence fraud campaign into the narrative. Last month, Brennan tried to obtain text messages between Reed and Yannetti, arguing that Reed had sacrificed the right to attorney-client privilege by discussing her conversations with the lawyer in interviews. Judge Beverly Cannone denied the motion. He also sought private conversations between Reed and Aidan Carney, the blogger known as Turtle Boy, contending they would prove consciousness of guilt. Julie Miller, you don't know anything about how all the witness harassment came from Karen Reed and her lawyers? All the evidence that supports that theory? Brennan argued that motion before a different judge after Reed and her numerous lawyers single-handedly filed in during a proceeding without announcing to the judge that they were showing up. She fails to mention that. Julie Miller, an entrance so dramatic it made local news. Brennan told the judge, "I'm not sure why we're being joined by Miss Reed's team unless they have standing in this." And then Julie Miller leaves out the part where the judge agreed that they had no standing. Reed squinted at Brennan in disgust. He was later granted access to the messages. See, Julie Miller wants the Free Karen readers to go, "Oh, it was so terrible." He was granted access to the messages. Brennan found himself on the defense too. In the last month, Reed's team received 2 new batches of security footage from the Canton Police Department. Strangely, she's not writing about how Karen Reed's legal team defrauded the court and the public when they presented ARCA witnesses as unpaid, unbiased witnesses when they were retained and paid for. And they lied to the jury in the first trial. Strangely, that's not in this article, but okay. Hank Brennan found himself on the defense too. In the last 6 months, Reed's team received 2 new batches of security footage from the Canton Police Department, where she claims law enforcement tampered with her car, the alleged murder weapon, and began to frame her. Reed alleges that her taillight was broken at Canton PD. But that we know that can't be true because there's pictures of it before it ever went to Canton PD with her taillight clearly broken, like the check, like the welfare check on the children. When was that? A little before 8 in the morning or a little after 8? A little around that time? With fragments later planted at the crime scene, Canton PD did not respond to Vanity Fair's request for comment. A recent police audit outlined mistakes made at O'Keefe's scene, but found no evidence of tampering, corruption, or conspiracy based on the materials that hired intelligence company reviewed. So she's suggesting that there were other materials that they could have reviewed that would have shown conspiracy. You see how cleverly this is written? Oh, what propaganda. The new videos. I wonder if Julie Miller is getting a paycheck from it. Is this pay for play for Julie Miller? Is she getting paid by the defense? Or is she just trying to further her career, the career that she's always had? You can go back. I went over it. Every article she's ever written has killers as the heroes and obscures the victims, and every single Vanity Fair article she's written that's about true crime. The new video, which were turned over in October 2024 and January 2025, more than 2.5 years after they'd been recorded And months after Reed's first murder trial had ended, some videos obtained by Reed's team in October were clarified versions of what had been provided to the defense in April. Clarified is in quotes, as the original videos were extremely dark. There was no apparent chain of custody for new videos provided in October, but there was a note from Canton Police Department Chief Helena Rafferty that read, "This is how it records, LOL, no tampering." Rafferty is on the witness list for the second trial. While Brennan conceded that the video situation should have been managed better, he said the defense had not specifically requested this footage and that there was nothing to indicate it was exculpatory. Cannoni sided with Brennan and denied Reed's request for an evidentiary hearing. On any day when Reed is inside the courthouse, her supporters can be found outside accusing Cannoni of being biased towards the prosecution. That's a laugh. Signs have included slogans such as "Bev's court is a clown show" and "Judge Bev is conflicted." After Cannoni reinstated and extended the buffer zone for this trial to keep peaceful protesters at bay, not to keep protesters who the jury could hear screaming "Free Karen Reed" from inside the courthouse. Peaceful protesters, guys. Does anybody remember, was it MSNBC or CNN during the riots that said it was a mostly peaceful but fiery protest? This is the Karen Reed version of that. It's mostly peaceful and very quiet, except the jury can hear the Karen Reed protesters screaming as they're trying to deliberate. An unprecedented move to muzzle dissent and protect her own reputation. For Massachusetts sued the judge, claiming that the action was an unprecedented move to muzzle dissent and protect her own reputation. Inside the cramped Denham courthouse, Reed is likely to again confront the people she is accusing of framing her, including framing her with no evidence of any kind of framing going on. And in fact, it's a complete impossibility with the timeline. But okay. Including former Massachusetts State Police Trooper Michael Proctor, who led the Reed investigation and was dishonorably discharged from the law enforcement agency last month. Proctor plans to appeal the decision, according to his lawyer. The Massachusetts State Police found him guilty of unsatisfactory performance, with violations stemming from his derogatory, defamatory, disparaging, and otherwise inappropriate text messages about a suspect in that investigation to other individuals. He was also found guilty of consuming alcohol on duty. Last month, Proctor's family, including his wife Elizabeth and his sister Courtney, released a statement casting Proctor as the victim of egregiously false statements from Karen Reed and her defense team. They added that he has been defamed, maligned, and falsely labeled corrupt by the alleged murderer, her family, her defense team, and a mob of her followers. All the statement did was put his vile behavior back in the news cycle, and he had to use 2 women to do it, Reed said to Vanity Fair. Can he speak for himself? The statement also defended Proctor's texts. How would you feel if the contents of your personal phone were questionably released to the public without full context? Reed, whose text messages were read out loud during the first trial, said she found the sentence rich. But the difference is that Karen Reed is a killer and Proctor is not. He was a police officer with a perfect record. There was no reason to read his text messages, his personal text messages. He wasn't being accused of any crime. Except, of course, by Karen Reed. Somehow bamboozled her way to get the text messages, which is a technique used by Alan Jackson. That's how Kevin Spacey got his case dismissed. One of his cases dismissed is by trying to get people's private phones and embarrass them with information on it. Lowrider, thanks so much, says, pre-trial dono, thanks, Roberta. Bring it, Brennan is my new one. Fun fact, attorney with the best cufflinks wins. What are his cufflinks? What are on his cufflinks? They look like Japanese buildings or something. Does anyone else zero in on Hank Brennan's cufflinks? What are they? Does anyone know? Over time, I have observed, watch for it. Look forward to your coverage. Thanks so much. I like cufflinks too. I'm going to take just a really quick break. When I get back, more about Karen Reed's Vanity Fair coverage by innocence fraudster Julie Miller. Don't go anywhere.
Mic check, Roberta strides through the static haze. True crime Gotham where the shadows play their plays. Fraudsters fold when a spotlight beams. Fact focused queen busting propaganda schemes. Glass shatter lies echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light. Hard cash warrior, dissecting state and defense. Twisted innocence, claims breaking pretense. Gotham's truth seeker cuts clean with the blade. Facts in the forefront, no justice gets swayed. Cold facts drip heavy, real talk unfurls. Cracking cases open like oysters with pearls. Innocence gimmicks crumble to dust in the wind. For victims, her creed, justice till the end. Headphones blazing, she drops heavy artillery. Narratives twisted, meet blunt object civility. Roberta got receipts that unravel the ploy. Exposing the lies these fraudsters deploy. Glass shatters lies, echoes through the streets. Standing for victims, giving voice their beats. NYC Post, truth sharp as night. Roberta exposing she's the anti-fraud light.
Okay, we're back. Oh, Kitty, you have something to say? You do? You're very disturbed too by this Vanity Fair fraudster article? Me too. These days, when Reed watches movies about Boston corruption, some characters strike her as eerily familiar, like Matt Damon's self-righteous yet corrupt Stady in Martin Scorsese's film The Departed. He typifies Proctor's arrogance and excitement to play God in people's lives. Isn't that rich coming from you, Karen Reed, to quote your own words? Rich coming from you to someone who took a man's life, doing the same thing, playing God, deciding who would live or die. Proctor didn't choose to arrest you. You killed a man. You killed John O'Keefe. Had you not killed him, you would have had no interaction with the police force. Oh, always the victim, Karen Reed. Yeah, it's Darvo, right, Mia? Wallace, it's denied tack reverse victim offender. Jennifer Fried's brilliant concept there, Darva. Given her experience as a murder defendant squaring off against a biased detective, Reed now looks back at O.J. Simpson's 1995 acquittal differently. Well, Julie Miller, if you write it like that, then it must be true. Given her experience, she has experience as a murder defendant squaring off against a biased detective. It wasn't that Proctor didn't like her because she killed a man. There's no evidence that anyone else didn't. Isn't it interesting that Karen Reed is giving interviews to Vanity Fair when she should be out marshaling every resource, as she says, to find the real killer? Isn't it curious how uninterested she is in finding the real killer of John O'Keefe or real killers when she says she doesn't know? I mean, does anybody remember this opening that I play every single time? They're just sitting there. We don't know. We don't know who did it. And we're perfectly happy not knowing. Because I didn't love him. By the way, whoever said, got some pushback. Let's see if I can, if it's still in my bookmarks, saying that I heard wrong and that Karen Reed was really saying she did love John O'Keefe. I think this is one of these things that's just so jarring when psychopaths, when their mask slips and they speak from the heart or the lack of heart, whatever the dark chasm where their heart should be. I think people really just either hear what they want to hear because it's so disturbing. But take another listen. A lot of people agreed with me, but there were quite a few people who said I was wrong. She's saying she did love him. Let's take another listen. When here she is saying she didn't love John O'Keefe. Take a listen. Really open up your ears. Listen on headphones if you have to.
Together. And you loved him, I'm sure.
I didn't. We were dating.
One more time. For those in the back. One more time.
I didn't. We were dating.
I didn't. You can clearly hear her say, didn't. I didn't. We were dating. And I love the free Karen readers say, well, why would she call and leave all those horrible messages? Wouldn't she be trying to cover up her crime? Well, she was. She was saying nobody knows where you are. But she also had to express her deep anger and hatred for John O'Keefe in those messages. So she was doing both. I felt so strongly about the prosecution. So given her experience as a murder defendant, squaring off against a LOL biased detective, Reed now looks at O.J. Simpson's 1995 acquittal differently. I feel so strongly about the prosecution and his guilt. And the fact that he spent all this money on this dream team of lawyers, they all look like snake oil salesmen to me, which is funny because that's a phrase that's come to mind. Used car salesman, snake oil salesman, con men. When I look at David Unetti and Alan Jackson, Robert Alessi, her team of fraudster lawyers, they all look like snake oil salesmen to me, Reed said. Her thinking now has changed a bit. I'm not saying I believe OJ was innocent, but I believe that it was not a completely above-board investigation. Now that I hate the cops. And now that I rely on the movement that was born from OJ. So the Innocence Project was started by Barry Schecht, after he came off of OJ and realized that nobody knew anything about DNA and that he could manipulate the courts and the public using DNA. That started the whole movement. Now she's married to the whole innocence, fraud, wrongful conviction movement, which is very much like BLM, a totally fraudulent movement. Now that I am smarter, I would have cheered at that acquittal. You have to hold cops accountable. Reed is also expected, so she'd cheer for a brutal double killer. And she's like, killer got off, like me, like I want to do, like this killer wants to get off. And it started the whole movement that I've relied on to play the case out in the court of public opinion and not in the courts, because we can't win in the courts. We only can rely on dirty tricks, conning people, spreading propaganda, those kind of things. We couldn't win by actual lawyering. Reed is also expected to face other people she is accused of framing her, including Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin Albert. All four have denied involvement in O'Keefe's death or any cover-up. Canoni has furthermore put parameters around Reed's third-party culprit defense, banning its mention in Reed's team opening statement and prohibiting Reed's lawyer from pointing to Colin as a suspect. They can develop it, but last time they were forbidden from opening on a third-party culprit because there's no evidence of it, and they can only develop it. But last time they opened on it anyway with Karen Reed as framed. So I doubt Canoni will do anything if they open on it again, because Canoni absolutely allows fraud to go on under her nose, condones it, lets it happen in her courtroom. That's the kind of judge she is. That's where I agree, but for different reasons, about Judge Canoni with Free Karen Reed. She's a former defense lawyer who knows all these innocence fraud tricks and loves it, cheers it on. She wants to see Karen Reed get off, and she's like a second wing of the defense. Canoni has furthermore put parameters around Reed's third-party culprit defense, okay? In early March, Brennan announced that he had permission to reveal that there is no longer any federal investigation into the investigation of John O'Keefe's death or any related matters. It is closed. It is over. Shortly after Brennan's declaration, Canton Police Chief Rafferty issued a statement declaring that all aspects of the federal investigation have been completed, but some question, like Karen Reed, whether it's true given the resources and time the Department of Justice devoted to a logistically complicated probe. So Julie Miller wants us to think that because it's so logistically complicated and expensive that they're still working on it, even though it's been announced that it's closed. We should second guess it. Brian, Colin, and Higgins plus McCabe were subpoenaed to testify before a grand jury. Yannetti revealed in court that his entire case file had been subpoenaed by the U.S. Attorney's Office, later sharing that the request was part of an ongoing investigation, disclosures that took the prosecution by surprise. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts has turned over with the new presidential administration, with Lee B. Foley having replaced Josh Levy. When I asked Reed about Brennan's assertion that the federal investigation had ended, she messaged me that in her mind there were only two possibilities. The first, someone is not being truthful. Yeah, Karen Reed. The second, the new administration is choosing not to pursue this investigation. That hardly means anyone involved in murdering John or framing me was cleared of wrongdoing. But everyone should note which side of my case is celebrating the federal investigation supposedly being closed, which side isn't. That will tell you which side of the case is culpable and therefore worried about a possible federal indictment. No, it's not. Shouldn't she be happy that she wasn't framed? Shouldn't she be happy that they found no wrongdoing? Where is her evidence of it? When Brennan first signed onto the case, he vowed to give Reed a fair trial, but Reed said she never expected that courtesy. She pointed to some of Brennan's recent arguments, such as one asking Canoni on behalf of the Commonwealth to impose a gag order on Reed's attorneys so that we can have a fair trial. Canoni granted the request. If you notice Brennan's language, it has evolved from wanting me to get a fair trial to the Commonwealth deserves a fair trial. No, he mentioned, my memory is he mentioned both Reed and the Commonwealth. But okay, I'll go back and take another listen. Reed messaged me in the hectic days before jury selection. The first trial jurors had come forward saying the jury had been unanimous in deciding to acquit Reed of the murder and leaving the scene charges, but had been split on manslaughter and failed to understand that coming to a partial verdict was possible. There was an entire Reddit thread. Well, at least Julie Miller is using good sources, like Reddit threads, speculating why Brennan took the case. J.W. Carney, Brennan's partner in defending Bulger, did not elucidate on phone calls with Vanity Fair. The opportunity was offered to him and he took it. I have some information about that, but I don't think I'm allowed to share it, how he got involved in this. Carney called Brennan the finest cross-examiner that I have ever seen. In this sense, Brennan is a match for Jackson, who prosecuted Phil Spector and got a hung jury, by the way, and was described by Dominic Dunn as having an uncanny ability to enrage those he quizzes. Brennan was responsible for one of the most riveting days of the 2013 Bulger trial, according to the New York Times, when he cross-examined Stephen the Rifleman Flemmi, the government's star witness and Bulger's former crime partner. Carney said Brennan had caught the convicted murderer off guard with his first question. He asked him if his daughter ever sat on his lap as a child and called him daddy. Woo! Flemmi had been involved in the killing of his stepdaughter, and Brennan's opening salvo was a surprise. Later, Brennan tripped him up on key details that shot his credibility, eliciting acknowledgement that Flemmi had played a role in his stepdaughter's death. I agreed because I was coerced into it, Flemmi said before pausing. And, Mr. Brennan, I didn't kill her. After just over a week of jury selection, the prosecution and the defense have seated 15 out of the 16 jurors. Reed told reporters outside the courthouse that opening arguments could begin as early as Tuesday. With a combined list of 150 potential witnesses, the second trial could last as long as the first, 9 weeks, if the Supreme Court does not intervene, which it didn't. The appeal to the nation's highest court last week argued that her constitutional double jeopardy protections would be violated if she were to be tried again on the charges of murder and leaving the scene. Until the Supreme Court decides whether to take her appeal, Reed says she is trying to look at the bright side. I'm still free. Oh, isn't that such a feel-good story from innocence fraudster Julie Miller? A cop killer is still free. And I love how she calls it that Karen Reed's retrial has been turned into a spectacle. Well, Karen Reed has made it a spectacle, no one else. And the buffer zone that the article criticizes is there to eliminate making her trial a spectacle and ensuring her a fair trial. She should be behind it. But innocence fraudsters like Julie Miller and Karen Reed's fraudulent lawyers all want to cheat to win and want to continue to propagandize the jury and the public because they can't win in court. And that's what all innocence fraud campaigns are about. Cheat to win, propagandize the public. Just so sick of it. There's so many of them. I'm going into almost a decade of covering these cases. And this is the scariest one because this will be repeated. Whether Karen Read is convicted of the smallest charge, acquitted, or found guilty of second degree, we will see more pre-trial innocence fraud campaigns like Karen Read's, because A, there's money to be made in them, and B, there's always some fraudulent lawyer getting ideas from other fraudulent lawyers. Speaking of fraudulent lawyers, I haven't played this in a while.
I'm a tiny man, bark as bad as my bite. Got hundreds of ways to fool you. Hold my killer client tight. Cheat to win only increases my popularity. Stalk and shout around the courtroom like a Matlock parody. I'm a lawyer, a criminal lawyer. Think like a criminal, spout legalese. Lying by profession. When in doubt, blame the police. When my con gets exposed, I act deaf and dumb. Blame sudden onset amnesia. Got the press under my thumb. Drinks with my killer client at Smith and Walensky. Check paid for by fans. My elbow on the killer's knee. I'm a lawyer, a criminal lawyer. Think like a criminal, spout legalese. Lying by profession. When in doubt, blame the police. When my con gets exposed, I act deaf and dumb. Blame sudden onset amnesia. Got the press under my thumb. Drinks with my killer client at Smith and Walensky. Check paid for by fans. My elbow on the killer's knee.
Okay. Julie Grant, on her Court TV show Opening Statements with Julie Grant, had a segment. I thought I'd share it. I don't know how many saw it, but before I do, let me just get to, wait, hold on one second. Let me just get to Rockstar's comment. Rockstar60 says, Roberta, WCVB, reported recently that Hank is seeking the full 400 to 500 hours of unedited video from Karen's ID Max disaster. So that's the ID Discovery TV show, disgustingly titled A Body in the Snow, as if John O'Keefe has no name, doesn't deserve to have a name. He's just a body. But yes, and Karen Read's lawyers, and I don't know what the arrangement was, but went after that ID Discovery TV show to be made. So work to get it into existence. And I hear that there was a lot of damaging things that they asked to be put on the cutting room floor. So it's amazing to think, because so many of the comments in that are already so damaging, like either Jen McCabe's going down or I'm going down. It's not a direct quote, but that's the gist of it. I don't know exactly how she put it. Either I'm going down or Jen McCabe's going down, or Jen McCabe's going down or I'm going down. And if her innocence fraud pretrial campaign is coming in, it's really going to look like she started pointing the fingers at everyone else because she would rather have people that she knew, people that she went to drinks with, pretended to their face that she was friends with them or friendly with them. They were really John O'Keefe's friends. She doesn't have too many friends of her own besides John Silvera. She's perfectly happy seeing them falsely accused and charged with John O'Keefe's murder, as long as it's not her, and have their lives made hell and their children's lives made hell. Anyone but her. If she's being charged with this, then everyone else she's going to point the finger at everyone else. Thought that was very damning. Her imitation of Peggy O'Keefe, leaning across the kitchen aisle and saying, "I think John got hit by a car." Well, he did. Mom knows. Seems like some people in the O'Keefe family liked Karen Reed, but not Peggy O'Keefe. Seems like Mom knew. Mom knew that Karen was no good. Anyone else get that impression from what's been put out into the public domain? That Peggy O'Keefe did not like Karen Reed? Seems pretty obvious to me. Whereas Paul O'Keefe may have been fooled by her, Peggy O'Keefe knew she was no good. So Julie Grant on her show Opening Statements with Julie Grant had John O'Keefe's friends on to talk about John O'Keefe. We so seldomly hear any information from John O'Keefe's friends and family. I've invited anyone who knew John O'Keefe who wants to talk about him. There's always an open invitation on this channel to come on and talk about John O'Keefe anytime they would like. My email address is in the About section, my YouTube channel. Get in touch with me. But here is a really nice panel of John O'Keefe's friends talking about John O'Keefe. Let's take a listen.
Play out. It didn't play out the way it should, and these people have been robbing the O'Keefes of justice and making them shameful of everything that's going on, and it's not right.
Did you have any siblings?
2, yes. My sister Kristen. And brother John. They all called him Johnny, especially if you're a family.
And what did Johnny do for work?
Boston Police.
How long was he a member of the Boston?
16 years.
As defendant Karen Reed's murder retrial is set to begin in Massachusetts this morning, we're giving a voice to the victim, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. O'Keefe was a veteran officer who was off duty when he was killed on January 29th of 2022, allegedly hit by the car that his girlfriend Karen Reed was driving. O'Keefe died in a snowbank in the front of his friend's house. Outside the Dedham, Massachusetts courthouse where the trial's been happening, it's been a spectacle. They may not be screaming and other people outside, but make no mistake about it, John O'Keefe and his family have very loyal supporters.
This is not normal. You normally do not tailgate a murder trial. It is not something that should be normalized. People should be able to let what happens in the courtroom make their decision, not a mob of people outside tailgating saying that they're having the time of their life. A man died. He's been forgotten in all of this. We're trying to refocus him.
So how did we get here? How did it become such a circus? Well, here on this program, we keep the focus where it belongs, on the victim, on John O'Keefe. And this morning, we're paying tribute to him with 3 of his dearest friends. I'm so pleased to welcome on the program now Brendan Kane, John Jackson, and Jackie Dugal. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for having this important conversation with all of us here on opening statements. And might I just start by saying, just person to person, from me to all 3 of you, I am so sorry for your loss. I know this has affected you all greatly. And so here what I want to do with all of you this morning is talk about your friend. I know you all call him Johnny. Johnny's life. And then we're also going to talk about his legacy this morning. So let's start with his life, the person that he was, the way he lived. I want you all to tell us more. Brendan, you've known him since childhood. For 40 years, you 2 were friends. Would you start us off, please?
Sure, Julie. Thank you very much for having us this morning. We appreciate the support. Johnny and I grew up on the same street in a very typical suburban town outside of Boston, a town called Braintree. It's about 15 minutes away from Canton, where everything happened. But growing up, it was a pretty prototypical childhood, kind of tropey in a way, but we played in the neighborhood a lot, rode our bikes a lot. From nursery school all the way up through high school. We stayed close through college, where Johnny met John Jackson, also on the panel. We all became close friends, stayed friends right through the time where he was murdered.
Oh my gosh. And so let's pick up where you left off. John Jackson, so you met.
Some of the best parts of the ID Discovery TV show are from John O'Keefe's friends, who were really brilliant in that, especially Brendan Kane. I think particularly of his comments when he calls it a murder carnival, those just right on point comments stick in my mind. Otherwise, it's just footage of Karen Reed walking in and out of court and ironing her clothes and lying.
Met
in a very edited version of the trial, meant to make the public think that there's no solid evidence against Karen Reed, or that her witnesses weren't completely debunked in cross-examination during the trial.
Johnny O'Keefe in college, and what happened then next?
Hey, Julie, good morning. Thank you for this too, by the way. Appreciate it. He was just an amazing man that was easy to get along with. You become lifelong friends with somebody like that pretty easily. And once you kind of got in Johnny's orbit, he kept you in close, and anybody else in his orbit kind of came in with you. So he kept us all pretty tight. He just had that kind of personality about him, and we're going to miss him tremendously. And you can see here there's some support gathering behind this, and we just want everybody to realize, some people are looking at this as entertainment, and some people are looking at this as some sort of way to fulfill something in themselves. But at the end of the day, Johnny's not here with us anymore. For those closest to him, and for many others, we're going to miss him tremendously. And that's why we appreciate you having us on today, Julie.
Right. He was excellent too. So Tara Kerrigan, also excellent. Who mentioned that? She was excellent. I mean, they were really like the shining stars for me of what was supposed to be the Karen Reed documentary. It was John's friends. But, you know, Johnny O'Keefe, I think, was one of the most, I mean, they were really like the shining stars for me of what was supposed to be the Karen Reed documentary. It was John's friends. But, you know, Johnny O'Keefe, I think, was one of the most, I mean, they were really like the shining stars for me of what was supposed to be the Karen Reed documentary. It was John's friends. But just very, the comments that I remember being, just extremely poignant are the ones that really went to the heart of the matter. Came from Brendan Kane. Those are the ones that touched me, where I went, oh, that's right on point. Good going. Right on point. Right on point. Right on point.
Most certainly, John. And then, Jackie, I know that you ended up meeting Johnny. This is after college, when he's working professionally as a police officer and through a connection with your husband working in the same place. Would you walk us through that?
Sure. I actually knew John just from being around in South Boston, my 20s, and socially before I met my husband. And he was actually with my husband the day that we met. And, since he took over being a parent to his niece and nephew, he moved to the town over from us. And we really, formed a great friendship with him. And he'd give us a bunch of his, hand-me-down toys and sports equipment. And, we just thought that he would be somebody we'd grow old with and be friends with forever. And, my husband and John worked at the same station. They saw each other almost every day in the gym. They didn't work in the same department, but at the same time. And I looking through photos to try and give you, we just didn't have many from the last 5 years, because you don't think of taking pictures with your best friends, and you just kind of hang out and it's not something you think about. So that kind of stuck out to me too.
Sure, and we thank you for the ones that you did give us to share with all of our viewers, and there are plenty of beautiful ones, but you're right, you never think this friend is going to be gone. I mean, he's in the prime of his life. I want to...
I can count on two hands times one hand I've taken pictures with my friends. She's right, you tend not to. And every time, though my boyfriend likes to take a lot of pictures, and every time you're like, oh, really? I'm not really ready for prime time. But yeah, it's great, though, to see all these pictures of John O'Keefe that we haven't seen. You certainly see enough of Karen Reed and her outfits that she plans for court, that she presses for court, that she arrives court, because I think she thinks if she looks perfect, she'll look like someone she doesn't look like. And we've even heard people make this argument that she doesn't look like someone who would murder someone. And I always ask, what do murderers look like? Certainly, if you've learned anything covering true crime, they all sorts. There isn't a type.
Ask you all to, if you just had to introduce Johnny to all of us, assuming someone at home may be turning on the TV today, if they haven't heard about this case, what would you say about it? How would you describe Johnny? And Brenda, let me go back to you, and might I say, I really appreciate your ball cap. I know what that cap means. I'm looking at you. When I looked at you, I couldn't see until the shot got bigger. 2490, that's Johnny's badge number. So a way you're honoring him this morning. Describe Johnny to us, please, Brendan.
I think everyone that ever met Johnny would say the same things. Johnny was unbelievably generous. He was unbelievably loyal. Again, as John Jackson had mentioned, once you're in Johnny's orbit, you were there permanently. He was supportive, but his loyalty and his generosity, I think, were two of his most notable qualities.
I mean, what great qualities, right? John, let me go to you next. What else should we know about Johnny?
Well, following up what Brendan said, we'll say it this way, most of us hope at some point in our lives when the moment arrives where you have to step up and be a hero, you'd like to think that you'd be able to do it. And with Johnny, the moment came when, with his niece and nephew, when his sister and brother-in-law passed. And what people don't remember really is the children were 3 and 6 years old at the time. I mean, they were just in the formative years too. And you know, he had a single sort of bachelor lifestyle as a Boston cop, and he put that all on hold, and he just raised those kids. So, you know, when you think about a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old going through what they went through, and Johnny being there at those moments when they wake up in the middle of the night, he was there. He was there for everything. And if you need to know who he was, that's him. So
a hero.
Right. So someone who'd show up for you, someone who is loyal. They also bring up his humor. So you get a sense, and you can see that in the video where he's moving, he's changing the cars. He's moving his car. So he's making room for Karen to park, which is, I don't know. You just, all these, anytime you see him, you want to shout, say like, don't go out, stay away from Karen Reed, right? But you can see he has like this little skip in his step. He's just got like a comedic walk, very open, funny walk. Does anybody else remember that from the trial? Michael Camerano and here changing cars.
I mean, really, a hero on the streets when he would go to work and put that uniform on, not knowing what he would encounter, but then at home too, rescuing those children, those sweet children who were orphaned, you know, so sadly, you know, because of both of their parents passing away. I mean, it's almost unthinkable that this tragically happened to those children, and then to lose their uncle too, who had become dad. I mean, it's just, it breaks your heart. Jackie, to you next. How would you describe Johnny?
I mean, Brendan and John said it, and I actually reached out to a couple of our close friends and asked them if they wanted me to relay anything, because not everyone has this opportunity, which I'm so humbled to have, to kind of share about John, and everyone said the same thing. You know, you could count on him. He was easy to talk to. It was kind of like he made you feel comfortable, you know, speaking to him and just becoming, you know, part of his world. He stood by the people, by his friends, in good times and in bad. And what people kind of don't remember also is that around the same time that his sister passed, his best friend passed, and he took on a lot of that as well. And, you know, he just, and never asked for anything in return, did it quietly, did it, you know, without question. That's just who he was, just who he was.
Wow, Jackie, I don't believe we knew that. This is news to me. So, you know, his brother-in-law, his sister both pass away, and then Johnny steps in to be dad to the kids, and then he also loses his best friend too?
It was a little bit prior to him stepping in, a couple of months prior, but another Boston police officer who is one of his best and dearest friends, and John is actually the godfather to his son. Yeah, I mean, he took on a lot there too, and he just talking to his family, and what they wanted me to convey is that he also was taking, you know, one of his fellow police officers to cancer treatment, and no one ever knew. No one ever knew. He just never would do things for his friends and never ask for anything in return, and that is just really who he was. Unbelievable guy, really.
Isn't that the true meaning of giving, right? When you give and you're not expecting anything in return, and you're not doing it for show. As you all described, generous, loyal, and beloved. Might I add, beloved. I can see that from talking to all of you, and what a wonderful family the O'Keeffes are. Thank goodness they all have each other, and the children have all of them, and all of you wonderful friends to get them through the.
But this is also where toxic people enter your life, or when there's a big change, when you're going through a transition. It's also when people get involved in cults. It's when you're vulnerable, when you've had a loss, or there's been a dramatic change of position in your life, you're most vulnerable to psychopaths like Karen Reed. And that's why I was curious whether it was Karen Reed who had reached out to John, but apparently it was John who reached out to her, that John had reached out to all his ex-girlfriends, and Karen Reed is the one who answered. So I'd wondered if she had reached out to him first, because she's the Facebook aficionado, but apparently it was John O'Keefe who reached out to her.
Coming years. We're not done with this conversation. We just need to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're continuing our salute for Boston police officer John O'Keefe. We're talking about not only his life, but next, his legacy, the legacy that he has left behind. And we thank him for his 16 years of service.
Confessing to a murder on camera.
We're here to try and understand the mindsets behind your actions.
This is a terrible, terrible series by Court TV where they're interviewing killers. You cannot get in the mind of a killer. They're liars. There's no insights to be gained. It really sums up to because there's really no rational, reasonable reason that we can understand why people would kill someone.
It was a somber scene at Officer John O'Keefe's funeral in February of 2022, a week after he was killed. And as we inch closer to the murder retrial for his girlfriend, defendant Karen Reed, we are saluting the man who meant so much to so many by talking to three of his dearest friends. Jackie Dugal, Brendan Kane, and John Jackson are with us this morning. And in this segment, I want to talk about Johnny's legacy, what he's left behind, the memories, everything that is going to stay with all of you for the rest of your lives. Jackie, let me begin with you. Your thoughts, please.
We talk about how loyal he was and unwavering in his friendship. But he was also a guy who you would laugh around. He would always crack jokes, and a couple friends who I'd reached out to said, he loved golf tournaments, and he'd unclip people's bags so that it would fall out, and you'd always get a quick little laugh. And the people he's left behind, his niece and nephew, and also Paul and Aaron's children, Reese and Ryan, they've lost a really great uncle who was fun and silly, and that's the kind of stuff that I miss the most, is just his little walk, and he had a bounce to his step, and just having fun, and always had fun when he was around, really.
Mm-hmm. He seems that way. He seems that way, that would like to enjoy life, have as much fun as he could, but then also you see how just responsible he was, and how he knew when to be serious, when to have a good time, huh? John, let me go to you next, please. Johnny's legacy, what is it?
Sure. Jackie's making me laugh here with some of the things, his walk and how he moved, and it's you can see it right now. You can see him doing it. He had the way he spoke, and he just was hilarious. He was hilarious, and going to college with him, I can't tell you all the great stories.
Sure.
But
pick a safe one for TV, John. Yeah, if you have a safe, quick story, feel free.
So let me say it this way more. Two things I can think about Johnny's legacy mostly. He was an incredible family man. Like he loved his family, his whole family, and this has been really trying on him. So say your prayers for the O'Keefes, but also for us. I look around and Brenda's on here, Jackie's on here, and you know, the group of friends that he had were amazing, and we'll be lifelong friends because of him, regardless of this. But I think specifically because this will be a lot closer, and there'll be more to hear from us later on after this is all over. But,
sure, and you're always welcome on this program, John. The love and the friendship, huh?
Thank you.
Yes, yes. And Brendan, to you next. What's Johnny's legacy?
Yeah, I think it does come down to family, and I think for Johnny, his closest friends were family. Johnny has a large extended family, largely in the Boston area, so countless cousins. I mean, Johnny was raising his niece and nephew, but he has 2 other amazing nieces that he was the fun uncle for. That they now have this enormous void in their life. Johnny loved his family aggressively. And I think that's where everyone's memories of Johnny will never go away. And that when you look back and see what an amazing man he was in so many different ways, I think that's the true legacy he leaves.
Yes, yes. That family is everything, right? I think we can all learn that from him, and that he was such a protector. That is really what I'm taking away from this as I'm listening to you speak, Brendan. You know, I always feel like our friends can teach us important things. And before we say goodbye, we have just, about a minute or so. I'd love to just kind of go around to each of you and share with us briefly one thing that Johnny taught you. Let me start again. Let me start with John this time. We'll start with you this time around, John.
It's all kind of the same theme. You actually said it yourself earlier. He knew, when to do what he was supposed to do, and when to have fun, when to let loose and have fun. And, for us, we would all go out, and he would be, sort of he'd be the one that kind of kept everybody in check, at least early on in the evenings. But
sure.
He was the one who kind of knew what he was supposed to do, when he was supposed to do it. And he was always upfront with you, brutally honest with you, good or bad, didn't matter. And you appreciated it about him, and maybe didn't appreciate his methods of delivery sometimes, but he had a funny way about it. But
honestly, that's always a great thing. Okay, I'm getting the warning that we're going to have to say goodbye in a sec. So just quickly, but I want to get your answers. Brendan, to you next, please.
Johnny taught me to buy the first round. Johnny's good. Generosity came out in many ways, that's but good. Johnny O'Keefe would always buy the first round.
What a generous guy. That's awesome. Jackie, to you next.
Just something my husband really wanted to say, and I know Brendan and Jackson would agree, is that if it was any of us in the other situation, he would be here, he would be with you, he would be standing out, and he'd be supporting our families, he would be there.
If it was anyone else, he'd be on this program like you all are, standing up for him. I can certainly see that. Jackie, John, Brendan, thank you all.
Okay, so we just hear so little about John O'Keefe, because I think his family and friends have largely decided to stay silent, and besides for 2 interviews that Paul O'Keefe has given, or one or 2 interviews, or 1 interview that was cut up, they've largely stayed silent. Which, my feelings, I've always felt that they should give interviews as a family, that it's really important to head off these kind of innocence fraud campaigns, but we'll see how it goes. I just wanted to share this. This is Karen Reed. There's rumors that she held a knife to, this is Innocence Fraud Watch's excellent timeline. It's such an incredible resource. There are rumors that Karen Reed previously set an ex-boyfriend's car on fire and also threatened an ex-boyfriend with a knife when he broke up with her after apparently discovering she had cheated on him. In the Commonwealth's notice of discovery, here there is a reference to 2 police incidents. One is from Waltham Police from February 16th, 2000, and another is from Mansfield Police, November 17th, 2000. Who knows if we're going to hear about that this trial, or if we're going to hear about this police report that was dug up from November 2020, that on 11/17/2020 at approximately 1:40 hours, I responded to Gilbert Street for a report of an issue between neighbors. The RP called to report that her parents' next door neighbor at 481 Gilbert Street, Karen Reed, was making threats towards them over the barking dog. Officer Fitzgerald also responded. Upon arrival, I spoke with Redacted and her parents, Redacted and Redacted. Told me she had tied their dog to a tree in the front yard so he could play, while Redacted and Redacted did house and yard work. Says the dog barks when it wants to come inside, and that she was vacuuming and was riding his mower, and they did not hear the dog barking, and she finally heard the dog, and that it was barking for approximately 5 minutes. Redacted said that Karen Reed, came outside and began yelling and screaming at her over the dog barking. Reed said she tried to apologize and explained that they could not hear the dog due to the yard work. Reed continued to yell and said, "Wait and see, you'll be sorry." See, this is very much Karen Reed's personality, one that enacts revenge. Remember what Karen Reed said about the crime. It's a mistake to think this wasn't planned. The aim was to teach John a lesson at minimum. So you're going to break up with me? You're not going to do something I want? Whatever it was. I think it was that he broke up with her. I'm going to teach you a lesson. I'm going to clip you with my car going 24 miles an hour in reverse with my foot 75% down on the gas pedal with my infotainment system beeping and flashing at me. Wait and see, you'll be sorry, said this had been an ongoing issue with Karen Reed since she moved in a short time ago. Redacted said they'd be good neighbors and told Reed that if there was any noise issues to come to them and they will take care of it. He told me that anytime the dog barks for more than a minute or more, or they make noise like play music in the middle of the day or blow leaves, Karen Reed comes over and begins screaming at them. Wow, what good people skills she has. No wonder we never hear about any of her former students, any of their glowing reviews, or ex-boyfriends. Well, go next door with Reed. Officer Fitzgerald and I went next door. I told them I will go next door and speak with Karen Reed. Officer Fitzgerald and I went next door and knocked on the door and rang the doorbell. Karen Reed would not come to the door. Isn't this? It's like when they tried to get her 2 phones. She went to Sarasota, Florida, and then when she came back, she made the officers wait for 45 minutes until her father arrived, possibly resetting the phone. I went back and advised and told him if Karen Reed comes out and starts to cause problems to call us and we will come back and speak with her. So that's what I have for today, guys. Please hit the thumbs up. Please share this episode. Help get the message out about innocence fraud. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more, please support the show via Venmo is the best way to make your dollars count. Link is in the description of this episode, or you can buy me a coffee or become a patron, which you get access to shows, special patron-only shows. Law Review says, thanks so much. Big love to Maestro. Thank you, Maestro, for moderating. I appreciate it. Wild times ahead and much thanks. You rock. Moderated so rawlessly. Thank you to Maestro, my best moderator, and thank you, Law Review. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Have some Gonna end the show with something new. Stick around.
It wasn't an accident, but with lying lawyers I'll go far. Lying lawyers and witness harassment. I'll avoid prison. It was snowing. I pushed the pedal down, hit him hard. Now the legal system I clown. Innocence fraud campaign to save my skin. Making money, truth is my second victim. Innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Innocence fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Yeah. Yeah. Fraud campaign is my biggest hit. Yeah.